The man behind the counter wasn't just a new cashier, he was the CEO, undercover in his own company. For 2 days, no one suspected a thing. But on day 3, everything changed. A young single mother broke down in the middle of her shift. Customers stared. The manager yelled. The CEO froze. Then she whispered something to him, something so shocking, it made him question everything he'd built. What had his company become behind his back? He had 3 choices: stay silent, expose the truth, or burn it all down. Maxwell Reed wasn't the kind of CEO who liked boardrooms. He built Reed Mart, a national retail chain, from scratch, starting with one tiny store and a beat-up pickup truck. But lately, something had shifted. Profits were up. Morale was down. And complaints from employees? Piling up. I want to see it myself, he told his assistant, handing over his Rolex and slipping into a cheap polo shirt. No cameras. No warning. Just give me a name tag and a shift schedule. 3 days later, Max from training clocked in as a new hire at one of his busiest stores in Illinois, store number 1184. No one knew he was the founder and CEO. Day 1 was quiet. Max swept aisles. Smiled at customers. Stocked gum behind the registers. The manager, Brian, barely looked up from his phone. One cashier, Melissa, showed him how to scan produce codes without sighing too loud. Everyone else, burnt out, quiet, on edge. Max made notes in his pocket notebook. No break until 5 hours in. Manager disappears for long stretches. Employee bathroom looks like a gas station. Still, nothing explosive. Day 2 got tense. Brian barked orders like a drill sergeant. A teenager named Adam was 5 minutes late after missing the bus. Brian threatened to write him up in front of customers. You want a job or a free ride, he snapped. Max watched Adam shrink. No one spoke up. Not even Melissa. Max gritted his teeth but kept playing his part. He stayed late to clean the stockroom and overheard 2 employees whispering. Did you hear about Anna? Shoo, cameras. Brian'll fire us too. Max scribbled the name Anna in his notebook. Day 3 began with a scream. It was just after 8 a.m. rush hour. A woman burst into tears at register 2. Her hands trembled as she dropped canned beans onto the floor. A line of irritated customers stared. Brian's voice cut through the noise. Amber, pull it together. Or go home, again. Max turned. The cashier, mid-20s, dark circles under her eyes, wearing a dollar store ponytail holder, was trying to apologize between sobs. She kept muttering something about her son. Brian stepped closer, his voice a low growl. You think your problems are special? We all got problems. You leave again, don't bother coming back. Amber just stood there, frozen. That's when Max did something unplanned. He walked over, calmly picked up the beans, handed them to her, and said softly, take your break. I've got this. Amber looked up, eyes wide. She opened her mouth, hesitated, then whispered something no one else heard. They told me not to say anything, but my kid almost died because of this place. Max's heart stopped. She grabbed her apron and ran to the back, tears streaming down her face. Max stood there, register beeping, customers waiting, and one thought burning in his head. What the hell happened to this store? He rang up the next customer with shaking hands, but his mind was somewhere else entirely. Something was deeply wrong, and he was going to find out exactly what it was. Max finished Amber's shift in silence, his mind racing. Her words echoed with weight. My kid almost died because of this place. He needed answers. But he had to stay undercover. Blowing his cover now would just make people shut down or lie. He needed someone who wasn't scared. That night, he approached Melissa outside the store. She was sitting on a milk crate near the dumpsters, smoking, scrolling her phone. You always close? He asked casually. 4 nights a week, she muttered. Other 3 I do graveyard at the hospital cafeteria. Pays better. This place just keeps the lights on. You knew Anna, didn't you? He asked, watching her reaction. Melissa flinched. She glanced toward the security cameras and muttered, not here. Max nodded. You hungry? She looked at him like no one had asked her that in months. They drove to a greasy diner off the highway. Over microwaved pancakes and cheap coffee, Melissa finally talked. Anna was a team lead, one of the best. Pregnant too, 7 months in. She started getting dizzy at work. Asked Brian to cut back her hours, even brought a doctor's note. He said no. Max clenched his jaw. Week later, she passed out by the freezers. No one came for 5 minutes. When they did, Brian told her to walk it off before calling 911. She lost the baby. The words hit like a brick. Max's stomach turned. And Amber, he asked. Amber's a single mom. Her kid has asthma. One day she asked to leave early. Her son had an attack at daycare. Brian said if she walked out, don't bother coming back. She ran anyway. Her son was in the ER by the time she got there. Almost died. Max stared at the table. Melissa lowered her voice. You built this place, didn't you? Max looked up. She shrugged. I saw your photo once. In an old training binder. You cleaned up the warehouse after a flood in '07. No other boss does that. He didn't deny it. Melissa leaned forward. Then you need to know, Brian's been pushing people out. Anyone who complains. Anyone with kids. Anyone sick. Corporate gets reports. But nothing ever changes. People quit. Or stay silent. Max felt sick. The company he built to be family first had rotted from inside. I need proof, he said quietly. Melissa nodded. Then come back tomorrow. But don't come alone. Bring someone who can shut this place down. The next morning, Max skipped the disguise. He walked into store number 1184 in a sharp navy suit, ID badge around his neck. A regional HR rep trailed behind him. 2 compliance officers followed, carrying clipboards. Employees froze. Melissa dropped her mop. Amber stood at register 1, her hand flying to her mouth. Brian stepped out of the office, laughing. Well, look who finally. Then he saw the badge. His face drained. Max walked straight past him. To the employees, he said clearly, if you've ever felt unsafe, unheard, or unfairly treated here, I want to hear your story. Today. And then, in full view of the cameras, he turned to Brian. Office. Now. Brian sat stiffly in his office chair, trying to keep the smirk on his face. But his eyes were darting, searching for a way out. Max stood across from him, arms folded. No more pretending. No polo shirt. No fake name tag. Just the CEO. The real one. The HR rep pressed record on her phone. Max didn't bother with small talk. You're aware Ana Hernandez filed a complaint last December. Brian shrugged. People file stuff all the time. You responded, and I quote, this store runs on discipline. If someone can't handle pressure, they shouldn't be here. Yeah. And. Brian snapped, sitting up straighter. You think this place runs itself? You want soft hands ringing registers? This is retail, not a daycare. Max stared at him for a long moment. Then quietly. She lost her baby in this office. Her water broke on that floor. Brian scoffed. You don't know what it's like managing these people. They lie. They fake stuff. They all got sob stories. You're done, Max said, voice like stone. HR slid a termination form across the table. You can sign it, or we can call legal. But you're not stepping foot in this store again. Brian stood, chair clattering behind him. You're making a mistake. This store hits its quotas. Numbers don't lie. Max didn't blink. No, they don't. But people do. And you've been lying for years. Brian stormed out. His name was wiped from the system before he hit the parking lot. Then came the real work. Max didn't stop with one firing. He spent the next 7 hours on the floor, meeting every employee, one by one. No scripts. No managers hovering. He sat in the break room. Listened. Took notes. Melissa gave him a USB drive with old camera footage and complaint emails HR had lost. Amber showed him the daycare bills she'd been drowning under after her son's hospitalization. Adam, the teen who was always 5 minutes late, turned out to be walking an hour each way because his mom worked nights and the car had been repossessed. Max didn't just nod. He acted. 2 weeks later, store number 1184 reopened after a brief shutdown. But it didn't look the same. Amber was now lead cashier, with paid afternoons off so she could be with her son after school. Melissa had been offered full-time hours with health benefits. And became the store's new employee trainer. Max flew Ana to HQ himself. He gave her a full settlement, a written apology, and, without cameras, told her she was the reason he came back. And Brian. Let's just say the industry has a long memory. And a very short list of second chances. 6 months later. Max stood on the rooftop of the first store he ever built, watching the sunset. His assistant handed him a folder. Inside were new policies, rewritten by him personally. No retaliation allowed, ever. Mandatory paid emergency leave. Anonymous hotline answered outside corporate. Monthly surprise store visits, by him. He tucked the folder under his arm and smiled. This wasn't about damage control anymore. It was about fixing what he almost lost. As he turned to leave, his phone buzzed. A text from Amber. Thank you. My son calls you the men who saved mommy's job. Max put his phone away. He didn't need a thank you. He just needed to remember. Every company has a soul. And it either dies in silence or gets saved in secret.